Welcome back to Autism for Badass Moms, the podcast where it's okay to be your true badass self. I am so excited that you've joined us today. I love when we have guests that come to the studio, and we actually have Chanel Grant, who flew all the way in from California. I'm loving the California girls. And I think there's like a song. Is there a song about California girls?
There is.
Okay, that's probably why.
Because there's also California love.
California love. Y'all already know. I feel like Chanel's my best friend because we started the show even before we started rolling. So this is so exciting. Today's topic is autism, advocacy, and the broken legal system. Very important topic. You know, I have so many questions. Chanel, you've been through so much prior to even getting like the diagnosis, right? The diagnosis comes and it's just like, what do I got to do? But you've been through it.
Yeah, unfortunately.
Through it. Chanel, educator, trauma-informed, advocate, 2 master's degrees. And listen, that's important because when you find out like what she's been through, you would think that someone just be like, I don't want to do nothing, but I'm gonna allow her to have her space and share her journey. And now, are we going to say Lex?
Yeah.
Okay,
Lex.
So Lex. He's Alexander, but we're going to call him Lex.
Yes.
All right.
Yes. He will tell you that.
Oh, he'll just correct it.
Yes.
Oh,
yes.
Love it.
Because we are teaching him to advocate for himself.
Oh, that's great.
Yeah.
That's great.
Yeah.
All right. So take our listeners, viewers back to where you would like to start that you feel is important.
So the origin of my story is when my son was 3 months old. And I always lead with this because it sends chills down my spine. And my ex-husband, I'm divorced. My ex-husband came into the room and he was kind of like giggling. And he was like, he is just like you. And I was like, what do you mean? And he was like, everything annoys him. He's like, he doesn't like the sound of the heater. And so my baby's 3 months old. And I stopped dead in my tracks. I said, what do you mean? He said, watch. And so he turned on the heater, and my son went, 3 weeks old. And I felt like my heart stopped because I knew it in that moment.
How did you know?
I knew. Part of me, when they say mom's intuition, like that's a real thing. A part of me was already kind of, I don't know, I just felt it in myself. He's only 3 weeks, right? Like, what could we have been through? Mm-hmm. But it was, part of it was my experience, right? I am an educator. Mm-hmm. I've worked in education my entire life.
Okay.
But I just knew. And so I spent the next, I would say, about 8 months holding my breath and like checking every milestone. Like I remember sitting him up on the bed, like to see if he'd tip over, mm-hmm. right? Sounds. And there were some things that were off, right? Not just off for an autism diagnosis, but like off, like maybe something else is going on. And so that was like the start of mm-hmm. me really just being hyper vigilant as far as like, is he hitting the milestones?
Now, did you tell the pediatrician your concerns?
I thought I was crazy. Like, listen to how that sounds,
Yeah.
And so I didn't tell anyone. I didn't tell my mom. I didn't even tell my husband at the time. I didn't even tell him.
So you held that to yourself.
I held that in. Mm-hmm.
Wow.
I did. And honestly, I don't know that I actually told anyone that until we got the official diagnosis when he was 3.
Oh, wow.
So even during the process, I might have told some of the evaluators, but like as we were going through, like I really felt like people would then not take me seriously mm-hmm. because I would sound like that crazy mom.
Yeah, come on now, like this is...
It's a heater.
It's a heater.
Right.
That is incredible.
Yeah. But I knew.
But you know.
I knew. A mom knows.
Yeah. I agree with you. I definitely agree that we have, our intuition, but that, holding that, and that's huge to yourself, must have been hard.
Yeah. I think what was harder was that when it became apparent that I wasn't wrong, I started blaming myself like I put it out there in the universe, right? Because how could that be at just like 3 weeks old? I was like, I put that out, and that's why that, happened, which is irrational. But as moms, we blame ourselves for everything. So I had to go through like, that. Like, this is totally my fault,
So I know there was a lot, and I don't know how much you would want to share with regards to your ex and that journey, because the diagnosis played a really significant, getting that diagnosis, really significant part.
It did. It did. And I think I'll share enough to be able to help any mother
Okay.
that's in, in a predicament like this, because divorce is hard. Divorce is really, really hard. And I actually vacated our marital home, and so I had to rebuild our life from scratch. So I was simultaneously rebuilding our home, finding a new home. We lived with my mom for a short period of time, but at the same time, still holding my breath, checking those milestones. And so one of the things that was really concerning is that my son would babble, and he babbled in a way that let me know he was trying to speak, but he couldn't, he wasn't
Get it out.
mute.
Yeah.
And so that confused me, just because then I on my professional experience, I was like, this doesn't really match. Every other thing matches. And I'm confident, that there's an ASD diagnosis here, but this is off. And so I took him to an audiologist, and they were like, he's fine. And I was like, I don't believe you. So I went to a second one, and he's like, yeah, he's fine. I don't believe you either. So this is that point where, like, I feel like I'm that mom. I'm crazy. And so my ex-husband and I, we did not see eye to eye on, and in his defense, no parent wants to accept that.
Yeah.
And that's the problem with systems, is because they tell parents what they want to hear. Everything's fine. And you take that, and because that's what we want to hear. And so I said, no. And so I did some research, and I found an audiologist that specialized in young children. I took him there. And it's funny because I am my son's primary caregiver. I'm at all the appointments. My ex-husband works a lot, and so he's normally not as present, but he came to this appointment. And so I'll never forget her. She looked at me and she said, this baby can't hear. And I sat on the floor, like I'm a grown woman. I sat on the floor and I yelled out, I effing told you guys.
Oh, wow.
Because when he was born, he failed his hearing test. I was a first-time mom. I didn't know any better. He told me sometimes those things happen, they happen. And I said, okay, and he failed it a second time. And they're like, we'll come back. Sometimes there's fluid in the ear. And the third time, they're like, he passed. And that was my first experience as a parent, where you take what the doctors say and you're like, great. I'm like, okay, he passed. And I never thought about it again. And so when they said that he couldn't hear, then we started the process. He had the tubes inserted, and he's fine now. But that was kind of like the first point of like, okay, there's some things going on here, and I'm not going to take anybody's, word moving forward.
And you think about it. Parents out there who you want to trust the professional is, really qualified and knows what they're doing. And you could have stopped at the first, no, the child's fine.
Yeah.
Or even the second, getting a second opinion.
Yeah.
And so that's incredible. But I mean, I think it's really important, point to drive home, that you trust your gut.
Yeah.
Mom knows, caretaker knows.
Yeah.
Because who knows how long he would have went.
Oh, yeah.
If you was just like, okay.
Yeah. And I was fortunate because in my career, I've seen that happen so many times, where I'm the teacher or I'm the principal or the person on the other side, where I'm telling the parent, like, hey, we need to figure something else out. And ironically, that's actually how I met his father, because I was a stepmother, and I was the one that had to have that conversation with him about, So I won't get into that, but I truly believe that you have to do your research and find a professional that's going to listen to you, And I go with professionals that are rooted in never underestimate the power of a parent, right? Because parents know. And I've had professionals tell me that. And those are the ones that I will typically make sure that are treating my son.
Now, did you have, let's say, friends or family that supported you on? No.
No, not initially,
Okay.
because no one wants to accept that. So my best friend, she's my sister. I met her when I was like 11 years old. Even she kept telling me, she was like, Chanel, kids go at their own pace, because he wasn't walking. She's like, they're at their own pace, And I'm like, no, not my son. It just didn't fit. I was reading to him from the moment he was in a womb. I packed a book to take to the hospital when I gave birth. So him not speaking just didn't fit for me.
Yeah.
I knew that there was something more. But I also knew the importance of early intervention. So I felt like I was on this really, really tight timeline to get some answers and get some help. And then right around 15 months, I filed for divorce. And then that's when we started our journey, where I'm trying to rebuild our life, but then also navigate everything that's going on with him. And it was the worst experience that I've ever had in life. I can confidently say that. And I have multiple sclerosis. I don't know if you know that. I was diagnosed with MS. I've been through a lot just in general, and that was by far the most difficult time of my life.
When you say difficult, what was challenging about that time?
Because I was fighting so many broken systems at one time, right? Now, here I am having to get second, third, fourth opinions just to be able to find out what's going on.
Right.
I'm also in a situation where I'm trying to get services, right? Because under the age of 3 in California, they won't even diagnose them. So I call the regional center, and what they'll do is they'll diagnose them with global developmental delays. So I was able to get that, diagnosis of those global developmental delays. And I remember talking to his pediatrician, and he was like, or she was like, it doesn't matter what the diagnosis is, because the treatment is the same. Speech, OT,
Exactly. Yeah.
And I made peace with that. I said, okay, then we'll treat it. So I was fighting for all of these treatments and all of these early intervention. But at the same time, I was in a custody battle, right? Because my ex-husband, he sued me for full physical custody. And then eventually doubled down to half custody. And at the time, he could care less if he was getting, any, that was the furthest thing from his mind, where I was actively trying to advocate for him to be able, I'm like, he's not talking. And my ex-husband had 2 older kids, and I was like, weren't your kids talking? And so, but it's hard because there's so many emotions in a divorce. And even though our son is young, when we divorced, we were married 7 years and we had been together 10. So when you start to dismantle, and I had raised his other 2 children, so when you start to dismantle family dynamics, there's a lot of emotions, like on both of our ends. Like that's difficult in itself. But my priority was my son. And so I was fighting the systems, trying to get him the services with the regional center, with insurance. And then I started fighting the court system because, love California, a parent's right is their those rights. And so it's like, how do you get a kid help only half the time if we're going to do half custody? Like, how do you do that? And my solution was the craziest solution that anyone had ever heard. I remember when I switched attorneys, they were like, why would you agree to that? And I was like, why would I not? And so I remember I stood up in court and I asked the judge, I said, Your Honor, if I will agree to facilitate every ounce of service, whether it's on my custodial time or on his father's, will you grant that? And she paused and she looked at me and she said, you're going to drive, because we live about, LA traffic, it's about an hour apart. You're going to drive like in the morning and pick him up at like 6 in the morning, drive him back, take him to services, and then drive him all the way back to his father's? I said, yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, I will. And she was like, you know what? Okay. If that's what you're going to do, then I'll allow it.
Had you been thinking about that?
No.
Or was it one of those kind of, in the moment, your heart was just like, we need to do something here?
I'll be honest. I could not fathom that we live in a world where that was even a discussion. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would be having that conversation with anybody, right? Like, I mean, he's not speaking. He needs speech. He's barely walking. He needs OT. So, no, I did not come prepared to have that conversation. And in the moment, I remember my attorney told me, like, be quiet. I just stood up. And I was just like, Your Honor, may I please speak? You know? And that was the only resolve that I could come up with.
Because you knew how important him getting these services were.
I did. Yeah. I did. I mean, having worked in education for so many years, I knew what a difference it was going to make. Because he was, at this time, he's 2 years old. He had just turned 2 like a day before. And it's just such a critical moment.
Yeah.
And I was like, I'm an adult. I'll be okay. I'll figure it out. And it was really funny because nobody thought that I could do it. No one believed that I would actually be able to do that. My own attorney, which I did not stay with that attorney. But no one believed that. I don't even think his father believed that I could do it, but I did. I got up. I woke up at 4 o'clock in the morning. I would get dressed and I would make his breakfast. And then I would wrap it up and I would get his clothes out, and I would get dressed for work because I was working full time.
Ooh. Ooh. I was going to ask you, I was like, I know she wasn't working.
I was working full time and I worked remote, but I was working full time. And I would leave my house at about 5 to get to his house at 6. And I'd pick my son up. I would drive him all the way back to my house. I'd feed him breakfast. I'd get him dressed. And then I would take him to services. And he got into a program that, when I say I beat down every door to get him in there, like there was no way he wasn't going to go. So he was in a developmental program where he got socialization with other kids. And you can only go from birth to 3. So it's that short window.
Okay.
And it's led by SLPs, occupational therapists, physical therapists. It was the best program for him. And he was there 3 hours a day, 4 days a week.
So you woke up at, 4 a.m.
Yes.
Getting him ready. And, I'm sure some certain days, may have been a struggle just to, get him ready and just all that. And having to work full time and services and for 4 days a week.
So no, I did that on, there was 3 days.
Okay.
1 week where he was with me. So I didn't have to do that. So 1 week, it was 1 day that I had to do that. And then the opposite week, it was 2 days that I had to do that.
That's still a lot.
Yes, but I did. And it was a lot on him. And that was all I cared about. That was what was funny is I remember I'm waking up at 4 in the morning and I said I had MS. So it was definitely impacting my health. But I didn't care about that. I just kept thinking, this poor baby, he's got to be up at 6 o'clock in the morning. And that was all I cared about.
Can I just I want to add to this because I don't know that everybody understands the symptoms that go along with MS. So You're just such a strong woman. So what are some of those things that you struggle with?
So MS is very similar into autism, in autism, in that just because you know one person with autism, that means nothing. You know one. MS is very similar. It takes fold in, different ways in different people.
Right.
And so my hands actually are my entry point. Like at one point at work, they had to get me a stamp because I couldn't write. But I'm currently in remission.
Awesome.
Since my divorce finalized.
Who knew?
But, right. But just exhaustion, the fatigue can get really, really bad. Vomiting, which is not common, but I'll have, that issue.
Yeah.
Muscle weakness. Those are all things that come with my MS diagnosis.
Yeah, and again, just having to get up at work
Right.
and drive from here to there and
Brain
let
fog.
Yeah.
You know, like, oh, did I remember to turn the stove off? You know, like little things like that will come up. And so one of my triggers, just ironically, right, just to like pile it on, is lack of sleep. So if I get a cold, if I don't get enough sleep, those are the two main things that really take me out when it comes to my MS. So I was struggling. I won't lie. I was definitely struggling. But I fought through it.
Now, how long a period of time did this go on for?
A year.
1 year.
Yes. So I did it for a year because California doesn't give an autism diagnosis until you're 3. So my son was 2. So he was able to do the complete program for an entire year. And he had his surgery for his ears and he started speaking.
Oh, wow.
So as we hit some of those milestones, I don't think I really cared at that point. I was just trying to like drive it home. But then once I got the diagnosis, the courts have to acknowledge that there's this illness, for lack of a better sense, that needs treatment. And so then I no longer had to do the drive. It got a little bit more complex, but for the purposes of this, I'll say then at that point, the duty relies on both parents, or then you're going to need some sort of custody change.
So I'm sure you were so happy getting that because the diagnosis is so important for everything. You know, it's like you're not recognized. You know, services can't begin. We can't set this up until we get that you got an autism diagnosis. Right. So I'm sure you probably were like, yes, go back to court. And I know then things kind of took a turn. You know, can you talk about?
Well, what I'll say is getting the diagnosis was a lot more difficult than I thought it would be. Because he was in early intervention for an entire year. And I don't want to get into weeds of this, but just diagnostic tests go from checking the boxes. So now he's checking a lot of the boxes, right? Because he's had all of this early intervention. And it's like, no, he can walk, he can jump, he can, you know. And I'm like, yes, because he's had a year of intervention. So the regional center actually did not do their due diligence. They did not test him in time. And this is where my background came in. And I'm going to actually say this to anybody, right?
We're going to drive this point home.
We're going to drive this point home, right? I knew that there's only a few tests that are considered the gold seal for a diagnosis. I also know that if you give those tests, you can't repeat them or the scores are invalid. So I went through insurance and I had them give them all those tests through private insurance. So he got the diagnosis through private insurance. But I was still in a battle with the regional center because they don't care about my private, diagnosis. And I said, that's fine. You guys can test him. Because I knew what they didn't know. I knew that when they got him in the room, there weren't very many tests that they were going to be able to give him. And so when I got there, I remember the evaluator, she says, oh, well, there's just not a lot of, more tests that they can give. And I said, well, what do you mean? And she says, well, we just can't re-give these. And I said, well, is there anything that you can do? She's like, yeah, we'll do, a few things. Do you have a copy of the report? And I said, yeah. And she said, you took the ADOS. I said, yeah, we did. We did. So I was able to get the diagnosis through the regional center. I was able to get the diagnosis through private insurance. And then I had to go up against the school district. Same process, right? He's checking all the markers. We don't know if we're going to qualify him under autism. We're going to do a language impairment. But at this point, his speech is taking off.
Okay.
Right? Because he had the other diagnosis of the hearing impairment that we've now repaired. And so I'm like, nope, I see in the future you're disqualifying him because now he's speaking. So we're going to go for the autism diagnosis. So it was a very lengthy process to get that diagnosis in itself. Like, that was a battle. and a lot of sleepless nights. So yes, we got the diagnosis, and then I thought, okay, great. Now we're like at that finish line. So still in a custody battle, and two things happened simultaneously. We still kept 50-50 custody, which I did not expect to happen. Because I also knew that then that meant that there was going to be a lack of services on one end, right? Even though we were both supposed to, be taking them. And I lost my job.
And you worked there for over a decade.
A decade. I did. And it was a merger. It wasn't, it wasn't like, but I had been there a decade. Organizations, merged. And so, I mean, the timing just couldn't have been worse for me in my head at that point. So I'm unemployed. I'm in a heavily litigated custody battle that is costing me, at this point, I've depleted my savings. And I've maxed out every credit card. At the same time, I'm the primary caregiver, regardless of what the custody, says. I'm doing the driving, this, that. I have him all the time. And so I'm like, I really could have just like pivoted. Like I didn't know how to pivot is what I should say initially. And I felt like I was failing him. I was like, I'm failing my son. Regardless of all that I had done, I really felt like I was failing him. Like, how are we going to live? What are we going to do?
And at that point, were you able to share what you were feeling with anyone?
I don't even think I tried.
Yeah.
I mean, when you're in that survival mode, I mean, I had a therapist. I actually had a really great therapist, and my friend who I mentioned, I mean, she came through so many times. And it's so funny. I said I was never going to share this, but I actually am. I was sitting on the floor because we went through two different judges. And the first judge was very difficult, like very, very difficult. She's the one that was okay with me doing the driving. And so I lost my job and I just felt so defeated. And I was sitting on the floor crying in my living room. And my friend was like, well, what can we do? Like, there's something we can do? Because she's like me, like she's a go-getter. And so Danielle, I'll say her name. Danielle, she's like, we can do something. And my head was down. And that's something that I don't do. I never hold my head down because I'm like, you always keep your head up. My head was down. And I said, at this point, God himself would have to come down here and remove her from the bench. The same, like within 24 hours, I got a call from my current attorney that she was closing her practice. And I needed to find a new attorney. I was out of retainer, right? I had lost my job. And I was like, what am I going to do? So this is like day one after I made that comment. Day two, one of my really, really good friends, Rika, she referred me to the attorney that worked her case. And I will thank God for Jessica for the rest of my life. Jessica took on my case. My mother helps me pay the retainer. And the third day, I was walking to pick my son up, and Jessica called and told me that a new judge had been assigned to our case.
Wow.
But not only was it that a new judge had been assigned to our case, it was the exact words that I had said. They had completely removed that judge from family court. That was what I needed. After that, I never lost faith. I never lost hope. I just kept going. So far that I then enrolled in a Master's of Education, special education program. Because I got tired of paying all these attorneys. Paying all these attorneys to fight these battles. And I was like, okay, if I got to be able to help him. And I had been an educator. I went to school to be a teacher. And then I went into for-profit education, so I had gotten my MBA. And so I was like, I'm about to be the VP. I was on a very, very different trajectory. And so I did. I enrolled and I stayed in school. And Jessica was able to litigate. My son is in all of his services, all of them. He's thriving. I have primary custody. He's with me pretty much the entire week. We alternate weekends. And we're all in a much better place. My son has a much better relationship with his father.
That's great.
His father and I have, they say you want to get to a place of indifference. And I understand him. And my priority is my son. And so I am dedicated to making sure that we are able to co-parent in a way that only protects Lex. And that's it. And I'll give him credit. He has not pushed back on me since then. Probably for obvious reasons, because when I say I fought, I fought. At one point, I didn't have the money to file subpoenas. And so my mom served them for me. We were driving all around LA. We went to Children's Hospital, served a subpoena on his, because my son has some GI issues, on the doctor. We filed a subpoena with the regional center, with his occupational therapist. And so, we don't have those issues anymore. And he's finally thriving, but it was a long, long battle to get there.
Yeah, and there's so many things, I'm sure, in between all of that. But any of that, any piece of that could have broke someone easy. Could have easily.
It should have.
Yeah.
I don't know how it didn't. Like, in hindsight, like, if I had to go through that again, there's no way I'd make it. I don't know how I did it, to be honest with you. And so I know there's a lot of people who know me personally that are like, I don't know how she did that, but I don't either. I mean, the only explanation is God truly carried me through that. I don't know how I was able to juggle so much at one time.
Yeah. Divorce, a child with special needs, and being able to really, do you feel like you were able to grasp that my child has, even though you sensed that he had autism, like, did you have time to know?
And, that's something that I envy. Like, you hear parents say, like, and I went through the process. And even though it's a difficult process, it makes me a little sad that I didn't get that opportunity. Because I got that piece of paper and I took a photo of it and sent it to my attorney. I didn't have the opportunity to really be a human in that moment or be a mother in that moment and say, what does this mean? How do I feel? By the time I got the opportunity to do that, it was like a year later. And by then we were so indoctrinated in it, it was just, I never got that opportunity.
Right. And I'm sure the viewers and listeners feel the same way, that, we love those beautiful endings, right? Like, he is thriving, that it seems like you and your ex are amicable and you're doing what is best for your child, because any separation, divorce, there are so many emotions and we forget about who this is about. Yeah. So I'm happy that you're able to come to some kind of understanding. Yeah. You were able to get that other degree. We have some badass moms. I don't think people realize, like, despite, like, everything we go through, we're still getting some degrees, like.
Yeah. It's so funny. I'm like, I have 3 degrees. I don't even know how that happened.
I think the survival, when you had said, when you get into the survival state, you're not thinking, about, like, the, how hard is this going to be? It's like, I need to get this done.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And I think, too, it made the divorce so much easier on me. Because I wasn't mourning it. That wasn't the priority. That wasn't at the forefront. I didn't have time to just be like, oh, well, you hurt me when this happened. Like, our child's not speaking. I'm struggling getting him to eat, right? Those were my priorities. And so I probably had a very different mourning process of ending a marriage, where I think his father's was probably a lot different than mine. But it's a double-edged sword because I'm grateful for that, right? Like, there's no stories of me crying on the bathroom floor, like, oh, my marriage is over, but a lot of me crying about my son and what does this mean for him? How am I going to get this? How am I going to make this happen? A lot of that. A lot of that.
I want to get into the legal system, and how that truly failed you. I think about how the legal system, they're not very well versed in autism and understanding our children's needs. And I think about, like, when we talk about, you're going to have the child on this week and that week, and how like routine and structure is so important. But what are your thoughts on the legal system? And
it's a systematically broken system. And unfortunately, it needs to be completely revamped. Autism is on the rise, but it's not just autism. I mean, I have MS. Imagine a child with MS, and physically, it's just not cookie cutter. And unfortunately, humans are not designed to just do the right thing, right? You're not going to get two parents to go in the room and act in the best interest of their child. That's just the reality. And judges are not informed. Now, the judge that we got second go round, she was.
How incredible is that?
She was. I remember there was a line that my ex-husband's attorney said, she doesn't need childcare. She works from home. And I remember the look on the judge's face. She said, sir, all parents need childcare that work, but especially taking care of a special needs child.
Wow.
And I remember I glanced at my attorney because she was newer. And she did like this. But we both kind of like silently acknowledged, like, okay, we're in a better situation right now. And then when it came to the services, I said, so no matter where he is, he's required to go. And she looked at me like I was crazy. And she said, I mean, well, yeah, he needs the services.
Wow.
But that's rare. That's rare.
You're absolutely right.
And they're not well versed about that. And I was grateful because our divorce settled. We did not have to go to trial. And I think by the end, his father was able to realize the uncomfortable truth. And that was that a child with this diagnosis just cannot be transported across freeways, back and forth. Like, they just can't. And so then you're faced with, as an adult, what sacrifice are you going to make? And there's multiple things. Like, I know someone where the parents live on the same ground, right? One is in one house, one is another. And I think that's a beautiful thing if you can do that. But I think those are more of the conversations that need to be had in situations like this, right? How do we get creative so that children can still, see their parent, both parents? But it's just not realistic.
Right.
For, like, they need a primary household. And that's hard on any parent, right? On any parent, whether it's a mom or a dad. Because the reality is that one parent is not going to see their child every single day. And I take that back. Because if I was on the other end, I'd buy the house across the street.
Right. I probably would too.
So I mean, but my point is that you do have to get creative, but it's just not practical. There's no way that that's in a child's best interest. And I really fought parents that let their neurodivergent children do that. Like, if it had come down to it, I would have it would have broke my heart. Like, if I hadn't been the primary parent and the one that was doing all the work, if it was on the other end. But I would have. I mean, I would have bought the house across the street. But those are the difficult sacrifices that you have to make because that's not okay. That's not okay for them. to this day, our son still struggles with going from one to the other. And it's not personal. It's just transitions are the hardest thing for him.
Yeah.
I have a hard time getting him from upstairs to downstairs. So can you imagine?
Mm-hmm. What do you think needs to, I don't know if you've given any thought about this, but what are some things that the courts could do to help?
They need people who are informed, professionals that are informed. Gosh, and when I say this, it's like, it's hard because everything gets so corrupt, right? You need professionals that are informed to really be able to evaluate the situations and make a recommendation. But then you're going to always have corruption, right? Because that was another issue in the family courts is a lot of it is who can out litigate the other party. Who has more money, because attorney fees are extensive, right? I will say this. It was not over $100K, but it was close, right? Over the course of 3 years. And those were my attorney fees. I don't actually know what my ex-husband's were.
And you had to, like, I know you said you stayed with your mom for a bit, and then you ended up getting your own place, but still having to pay for,
Yeah, I stayed with my mom for 3 months for context when I say a little bit. But when I got the notice that I was sued for full custody, I moved into a place the next week. And so I had to pay first and last because I rented and we needed furniture. And so, so I was doing all of those things. And then I still had to survive, you know, I had to do all of the things. And so,
And I know things are, just not that easy, but I do truly believe, bringing someone in who has an understanding of autism and you have to be able to, it's a spectrum, right? Like, so we also have to remind the courts that just because you saw one child in your courtroom that presented this way, and well, that child was stimming and that child needs, a little more care, that a child that is verbal, and that appears, to be okay, still can struggle.
Right.
Yeah.
And the hardest part of that is that my son was both throughout the process because we were told he wouldn't speak. Like, we were told to be very, like, he was declared nonverbal. They were not confident that he would speak. And he still has a language impairment. But, so they saw that version of him. And then they saw the version of him that was thriving. And so what you would think is that the courts would say, oh, so then the intervention is working. No. It was, oh, great, he's fixed.
And that,
and so it's really difficult. Yeah. I tell parents all over, I don't care how much you can't stand your ex. Nobody knows your child better than you. You guys need to get into a room and figure out exactly what it is that you need to do for your child and settle on that. You can duke it out in court for 10 years about finances and anything else. That's okay. That's fine. And who did this and that, that's okay. But you need to provide some stability for your child. Because there was also a lot of symptoms that came up with him where I always wondered, is this even related to the autism?
Okay.
Right? Or is he just tired? Right? He has a lot of GI issues, but is it the difference in diet from house to house? And when you said, like, with the courts with, like, one child, so my son does pretty good being with me or being with his father. The problem is he don't want to go to anybody else. And his dad works a lot. So when he's like, oh, we're going to do this 50-50, it meant that he at one point was in a daycare, right? Can you imagine this? He's in a daycare with like 11 other kids. Sometimes I'd come and he'd just be sitting in a playpen, right? That was really hard for me. I remember one day I was parked outside the daycare. It was not my custodial time. And I was on the phone and I was like, I just want to see him. I was talking to one of my girlfriends and she was like, Chanel, please drive off. And I've got really good friends. We all met in middle school and she's like, I need you to listen to me. I need you to drive off. And I did. That's good. But that was hard for me. Like, that was really, really hard for me to because I had to that's where I was bringing him, right? When I would pick him up in the morning and take him to services, it wasn't like I was taking him back to his dad, which I wouldn't have cared. I would have drove off on 2 wheels. But I was sometimes dropping him off to my ex-mother-in-law, who is elderly. And, you know, older people sometimes don't have the same viewpoint on diagnosis as others. So then I found myself with this, like, triangulating co-parenting dynamic. Or I was dropping him off to this daycare. So to have to go put your baby in this playpen and just sit him there, and then you have to leave. I would cry all the way home. It was a 45-minute drive because I had to go back home to go to work. Oof. And I would just cry all the way back. I did that for a year.
There's this piece of, like, having to give up control, right?
Oh, yeah.
Like, and that's really hard, not being able to control all these, you know, areas.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle.
What I will say that helped me is I developed the philosophy, safety first. So, and to this day, things will happen. Like, it's so funny. I'm here. My son's there. The school calls me yesterday. How much longer before you get here? And part of me was getting ready to go into a panic. And I said, well, his dad is picking him up today. Let me call him. But old me would have been like, oh, my God, you know. And so this is my philosophy. I stop and I pause and I say, is this a safety issue? I don't like it. I don't want him to be the last kid. But he's safe.
Wow, that's a good point.
And his dad's going to come. You know, his father and I are 2 different people. We don't do things the same. That's not to say that one is better than the other or right or wrong. And so unless it's a safety issue, I let it go. And I think that was really the turning point for our co-parenting relationship, because now when he gets a call from me, it is a safety issue. And he's much more likely to take heed because I'm going from 0 to 100.
Yeah.
It's a safety issue.
Yeah.
But that has really, really been, and I say that for just any parent that's co-parenting, you know, like one day he's like, I had a cookie for breakfast. I'm like, what? Not a safety issue, not my problem, not my business, not my house. And that has helped me keep my sanity.
Well, and that makes so much sense because there's so many things, I'm sure. Your child comes, you know, back and then it's just like, well, why are you not wearing this why are you have no socks on? Or why are you different clothes than what, you know, I brought you in? There's so many things that we can just really, you know, pounce down on.
Yeah, no. And the clothes, right? I hear so many parents say, you know, like, well, they took my clothes. And one day I had to say, you know, I'm not over here wearing his Lightning McQueen shirt, right? Like, you know, or parents like, or not, and I've said this to other parents, are like, and the toys go over there and they never come back. And I'm like, well, you know, when he's with his dad, I'm not over here playing with Legos, right? They're his toys. They're his clothes. And they belong with him. Doesn't matter who bought them, right? His father and I made him together. He's our responsibility. And that's the road that I choose to take. It gives me peace of mind. I don't worry about it. And I believe God has blessed me because of that. Because I do understand, like, financially, right? Like, that can be a burden, you know, with things like that. But they're his. And even though my son is on the spectrum, I really try hard. I don't try hard. I do. I treat him like you would any other children or any other child with accommodations. And so I explained to him, these are your toys. But if you leave them at dad's, you won't see them until you come back to dad's.
So make it a priority.
Right? You know, and my son is good enough where he understands that. Like, okay, you know. And have we had incidents where he's left them at mine's or, you know, dad's? Absolutely. You know, and I'll get dad on the phone and we'll have that conversation with him together. But I know that my son is my only child. And so one day I have to leave this earth.
Yeah. Oof.
And I have to leave him here. And that's heavy.
Yep.
for any parents. So I only got one shot at this to try my very, very best. Sometimes I fail. Sometimes I'm successful. But I do everything in my power to make sure that at the end of the day, I give my absolute best foot forward to give him an opportunity. And so I try really hard to do, because a lot of the time our instinct is to protect.
Of course.
Right?
Yeah.
Where's your shoes? Where's your, because I don't want you to have a meltdown. And it's really hard for me I got to let him do it. I got to let him learn. And I know he's capable. I know he's capable. I just got to let go. And that's that control.
And I think, there's also the other piece with our bandwidth, because some days, I think we're kind of talking, we can, or mornings, you feel like you're showing up and, that was great. I handled that. And then by the end of the day, you're like, oh, I suck.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And so just, being able to be in an emotional state where you have the capacity, okay, I know that right now this is going to potentially be a meltdown. Am I I need to figure out how I can ready myself, instead of just, wanting to, well, we're going to drive all the way over there and we're going to, and that's hard.
So I'm sure there is a YouTube video out there of me somewhere where my son had a complete meltdown. And I was about to have one too. I laid on the floor in the grocery store. And that is the nastiest place that you could ever lay. I laid on the floor with him in the grocery store. And I just laid there. And I remember he stopped. And he leaned over. And he looked at me. But someone once said something to me that has stuck with me. And this is before I became a mom. This was like in one of my trainings as an educator. And a dysregulated parent cannot regulate a dysregulated child. So no matter what happens, I have to regulate myself first.
Yeah.
And I've seen it happen in action, like where I'm here, my son's here, and we are matching each other's energy. But as my voice calms, as his calms, it's easier for me to de-escalate some of those things. One of the first things that I taught him, especially when his speech was so limited, was space. And I've been teaching him advocacy since I can remember. And so he will tell you space.
That's
space. And so rather than just, because, you just want to hear your baby's voice when they're not talking. But rather than me going like, mama, I chose action words. Eat. I chose really empowerment type of words that was going to help him, not me.
Yeah.
Because it was going to make me feel good if he said, I love you,
Yeah.
But how was that going to help him? And so to this day, that's still that's still what I do.
That's incredible. Now, I really want to get into Rise of the Phoenix. This is like a perfect segue into, so people are like, Rise of the Phoenix.
Yeah.
Talk about Rise of the Phoenix.
I will. So I will be very transparent and say that it's sort of taken shape and it's still in the process, right? My divorce has only been settled 6 months. And so I've only really had 6 months to really even focus on this. But through my divorce and a lot of the things that I was going through, I met so many women going through similar things. And it pissed me off because most of them didn't have the resources that I had. Most of them hadn't worked in education for 20 years. Yeah. Most of them did not have 2 master's degrees. And they didn't have the financial resources because I was a career woman, right? And so, do I want to say this?
Yes, you do.
So my joint bank account was closed when I filed for divorce. And I didn't skip a beat. I was able to keep right on rolling. That is not what happens in today's society, unfortunately. And it was my education and the fact that I had a career that I was able to come out. And that's just not what happens. And so that was how I birthed Rise of the Phoenix. Oh. And so what I did was I started really helping other women in my situation advocate for them. But I started with control. You got to let that go. You got to let that go. You know, and that was really how it was birthed. And then it morphed into like, yes, there's templates you can download, you know, and it just kind of spiraled from there. But it's a platform for moms. I mean, listen, at some point, like, this is not, like, someone asked me the other day, or made a comment on my post. They were like, what dad left for milk and never came back, or something like that. And I was like, not mine. It's not, but here's the thing. My son is the only one on this planet that knows what my heart feels like or sounds like from the inside. Right? And the only one that ever will, unless I have other children. And there's a different type of bond. And so it is for women that are going through the process, don't know where to start. I mean, and just need help, support, resources, that sort of thing.
But that's huge.
Yeah.
That, you know, like, you know, I know you're saying, you know, yeah, just do, but there's a lot of moms out there who don't even know where to start, you know, and just you having that platform, like, here you go. This is, you know, almost like a one-stop shop. Like, this is, and you've been through it. Yeah. Oof. Yeah. You know, it's really a beautiful thing. And, you know, I definitely want you to, where can your website, like, what can they do?
Yeah, so I actually have two websites. So it's actually the M.O.D.Y Manifesto.com. It stands for Mom of the Damn Year. That's my Instagram handle. That came from an actual parking lot fight.
It always is this, you know, these things get birthed from like some...
Right. I'm like in this full-blown argument, and this person tells me what kind of mom I am, and I'm like, I'm mom of the damn year! And so like that's where that was birthed. And so that's really, that's the main platform. It's got a lot of things on there for parents and things like that. And then we have the M.O.D.Y Manifesto.org, which is our kids' line. So one of the things that happens as you're going through divorce and these difficult topics come up and your child is inquisitive and asking you questions, I started making social stories for him, which is a tool that a lot of parents use for their children. And so I have all these books, right, that I've now made for my son to explain, like, you know, we're going on vacation and, you know, this happens. And the other day not the other day, but some time ago, I said to one of my girlfriends, and I was like, I wish I could buy these somewhere because I'm so tired of making them. And she said, why don't you publish them? And I was like, I never thought about it. But if I'm making them and I'm tired of making them, that means that there are other parents that do. Yeah. So we actually just published our first book. It's available next week. You can buy it on all platforms.
It is available next week, even though when this airs, it's already available.
It's already available. Right. So it's available on all platforms, Amazon, Barnes and Noble. It's going to be a 6-part series. Ooh. The first one, schools won't like. It's about poor placement. So I'll make it quick, but my son did not have proper placement for his through his IEP process, and he had to advocate and let me know what was going on in the classroom, and that looks different for different children. Yeah. So it's a very short kind of childlike story to inspire children on the spectrum that their voice matters. That just tell your mom.
Something don't feel right.
She'll go to war. Yeah. But it introduces the word IEP because I believe that is a word that, even though in our communities we're aware of it, a lot of other people aren't. Yeah. And it's a part of my everyday vocabulary, and I wanted my son to understand that. So each book will introduce some sort of neurodiverse word. Wow. This one is IEP. and explains what it is in the back to the parent for parents that are new to the process. And then it also explains what it is to the child in a very childlike process. And then there's like a little
I like
family
that.
activity that you can do in the back of the book. So they're all structured that way. The next one is going to go over the AAC device because my son did have an AAC device at some point. But it's really for our kiddos so that they can start to kind of understand what's going on with them,
That's
around
beautiful.
them.
Yeah.
So that's the other website. That's for our kids. That's our kids line. That's really my baby, where my heart is. But I will advocate for women until the day I take my last breath.
Oh, that's huge. Again, where the website, you're on Instagram, Mom of the Day. Where else can they find you?
Yeah, so the website is the M.O.D.Y manifesto.com or .org for the children's line. Mom of the Damn Year is my Instagram.
Say it like you mean it. Mom of the Damn Year.
Mom of the Damn Year. Let's just say it like I said it in the parking lot.
Puff your chest.
But yeah, I mean, I'm available. I again, anything that I can do to support our communities. That's what
Do you
I'm
do like
here for.
consulting? Do you do anything?
You know, I do. I do. I will say I need to really brand that a lot more because I just like to help people. I'm like, send it to me. And I get so passionate about it, you know. But yes, I do. I do.
Yeah. I just am thinking in the environment that we, are currently going through, it is so important
It is.
to reach out, find these beautiful resources to be able to help you and also the understanding of the importance of the IEP and things of that sort. So please, reach out, to Chanel, if you have any questions, or if you could just be like, hey, your story was the bomb, and what happened in that parking lot? You didn't talk about that. Like, what'd she say? Or what'd he say? But please reach out because it's just really, really important. It's always been important, but now more than ever,
Absolutely.
it is just
Absolutely.
so important for our babies.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So I love this part. We're gifting back to that mom out there who is like, I am at my wit's end with my partner. This is not going well. I feel like the courts don't understand me. My partner doesn't understand me. I got my child and just managing this diagnosis, and I may have other kids, or your child may have multiple diagnoses. What would you tell her? Because she's at her breaking point.
Yeah. I would say this. Your child is not okay if you are not okay. The belly of the beast is the court system. It will swallow you whole. Don't let it. Your ex may swallow you whole. At least try to. Don't let him. The more secure you are and the confident that you are with where you stand, the more regulated you are, take care of you, because you will have the power to fight and come out on top. Most people don't take that approach. Most people don't take that approach. Take care of you. Get that tunnel vision. Take the day off. Whatever you need to do to take care of you to make sure that you are okay so that you can show up in your full, authentic self for your babies. And the rest will fall in line.
That's so important. And that whole, if I take care of me, I feel, selfish. We need to throw that in some kind of dungeon somewhere and throw away the key.
It almost killed me doing that.
Yeah.
I checked myself out of a hospital to go to a court hearing. And that was my turning point because, right, I was there for my MS, but who's going to take care of him if something happens to me?
Yeah.
It's not selfish.
And your body will shut down. It will, if you are not taking care of yourself, you will find yourself.
Yeah.
I've found myself in the hospital,
Yeah.
And you're running and running. You're not realizing that, well, I haven't slept in how long? Right. How can you really focus and or be present and not be so reactive to maybe a behavior that your child's presenting with because you got no sleep?
Right.
So,
Right.
so taking care of your needs is important, and not, like you said, letting these systems or these relationships, swallow us whole and engulf us, because, like you said, it can easily happen that way.
Oh, it's designed to happen that way.
Yeah, yeah. Wow, that was powerful. That was powerful. But basically, it comes back to us,
Yeah.
to us,
Yeah.
and taking care of us.
Yeah. Make the most of the time you have with your babies. I spent too much time focused on the time that I didn't at first. Make the most of the time that you do. And my son is living proof that how important that is, because
Yeah.
he's thriving.
He's thriving. That's so amazing. I was thinking about, again, us taking care of ourselves. And I was thinking about if I had to have a surgery, and that surgeon, was just not really taking care of themselves and stuff, and
Right.
maybe didn't get much sleep. And it's just like, I just got to get this one more surgery in.
Right.
Would I want that doctor?
Absolutely not.
Absolutely not. You need to find somebody who is well rested and ready for this.
Yeah.
Right? So the same for us.
Yeah.
The same for us.
Yeah. Or even better, would you want them operating on your baby?
Ooh.
Right?
Now you went deep.
Right.
But that's
that's what we're doing.
Yeah.
Because we're the front line for them.
Yeah.
They rely on us for everything.
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't want the doctor to show up half, should we really be showing up that way?
I don't know, y'all. This episode needs a part 2. A part 2. Oh my gosh, this is so good. My last question for you is, what makes Chanel badass?
I love wholeheartedly, regardless of all I've been through. That makes me badass. Because I don't know very many people that can do that.
I don't either. So
Yeah, I do. I still lead with an open heart. I still have empathy. I still move in the way that I always have, in my true, authentic self. I'm not jaded. I'm not hardened. I'm not, and I think that is truly badass.
yeah, because majority of us cannot do that.
Yeah.
Majority of us can't. And so, again, I just want to thank you. I am so happy you came in person.
I am too.
Not like, if you weren't in person, it wouldn't be that great and amazing.
It's great. It's great. I'm so happy to be here. I'm so happy you had me here, and I've enjoyed my time.
You just dropped massive amount of gems. One day when I'm like, I don't know, got a little more money, I'm going to have gems just coming down from the ceiling, right? As soon as I say gems, just, that'd be so cool. But you are the epitome of badass. You have been through so much, but you didn't let it overtake you. It didn't beat you. And shout out to all the people that were there for you along the way. Those friends who had those meaningful, like, you need to get out of that parking lot and go home.
Yes.
Right? Like, just those people,
Yes.
Mom, serving up people and, where we got to drive next. But, and the therapist that you had. So it was great that you had amazing people, but just, there was a lot of pivotal moments, in your life. And the moment that will stick with me is when, you were on that floor. You were on that floor. God said, oh, yeah? All right. You want to test me? Okay, here we go.
And I was like, I'll never do that again. I'm so sorry.
What, you need me to take another course? Like, what?
I'm sorry.
So on that note, there is not much more that I can say, but just continue to fight for yourself first, fight for your babies, take care of you, get your tribe. There's resources out there. Find them. They're there. You don't have to have money to be able to, tackle all these systems. There's a lot of people out there who don't, but they make it work. Yes. And there's always someone out there to help. So reach out to Chanel. She's available. Her information will be in the show notes. And like I always say at the end, stay fierce, Stay determined and stay courageous. Ooh, I love that, courageous. Let that simmer, because that's what you need to do. And I'll see you next week. Bye.